I don't really know. I had this original opening. I had this thing whole plan, and then I proceeded to put it down somewhere, and I can't find it. So I'm kind of winging it from memory. You'll have to forgive me. Um, if you hear a blood curdling scream from like way off mic and it sounds very distant, please know that it's not me. My neighbor is on their roof right now trying to leaf blow out their gutters. I don't know if leaf blow is a verb. I just made it a verb, but that dude is right over there. Like I'm pointing right at him. He is on the second story trying to like run an extension cord out a window. He is an idiot. And there is a better than zero chance that man is going to rediscover gravity right quick. So if you hear a terrible scream, please know it's my neighbor and not me. I'm fine aside from some allergies. I'm fine. I hope you're doing well. One thing I do want to point out, and it's worth saying because we've already started. Of course, obviously, all solidarity to everyone striking. Absolutely, positively, it's the right thing to do. And anybody who writes anything knows exactly how hard it is to succeed at this. So why not, do something about it and support those people who help make the things that you enjoy. It takes, 2 fucking seconds to show some solidarity. Show them some solidarity. Support the WGA strike. They're worth it because they're good people. All power to all people. Hooray. Shall we begin? I keep looking over like my neighbor is going to suddenly realize, oh, I'm on the roof. Dude has not yet realized he's on the roof, and the sun is rapidly going to set soon, so that's exciting. But let's get started, shall we?
All right. Just remember what I've taught you.
What the fuck is that?
Hey, yo.
Yeah, here we are again. My neighbor, I have a terrible update. My neighbor has gone back inside. We no longer have the fun danger of a man dangling by an extension cord. I'm so sorry to get your hopes up. This is also the same guy who has chopped down small trees in like the corner of his property while wearing flip-flops. So I'm sure it's just a matter of time before we really have something interesting to talk about. But now, tonight, here, it's just you and me, and this seems like a great time for a writer's chat, so how about we hit that intro? Ladies and gentlemen, guys, gals, non-binary pals, friends, writers, makers, doers, dreamers, strikers, dancers, mathematicians, enthusiasts, philosophers, salon experts, hair pullers, moaners, groaners, anybody who knows how to make their own pasta, anybody who's ever tried to feed cranky children food, anybody who's ever tried to like wrangle a cat or two somewhere they don't want to be, anybody who's ever spent more than 5 minutes looking for their keys only to realize their keys were in their pocket the entire time, enthusiasts who enjoy all manner of sport, anybody who still reps the Oakland A's baseball team, and most importantly, the comrades. Hi, and welcome to the Writer's Chat for May the 3rd. I spent all day thinking that today was the 4th and tomorrow's the 5th, and I was off a whole day. So there was a pre-existing graphic labeling this for the 4th, and I'm glad someone was nice enough to catch my error a few hours ago. So this is the chat for May the 3rd, and I, through no fault of my own, continue to be John, the guy who's going to help you write better. Hi. If this is the first time you're hearing this, hello, it's nice to have you here. Thank you for letting me be in your ears. If this is the first time you're checking it out on Twitch and YouTube, hi. Thanks for coming. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell and follow and do all the social media things that we are trained to do. They legit do make a difference. Not only do they bring joy into my life, But, they're also just nice, painless, harmless things you can do to better improve and support the people who make you the stuff that you enjoy. Hooray! It's been a while since we've been here. It's been a while since we've had some questions. If this is the first time you're hearing it, you have no idea what I'm talking about. It's been a bit of time. There were some weeks where I wasn't streaming for a number of reasons. I'm fine. Everything's cool. It just, shit happens in life, man. And sometimes you don't get a chance to sit down in front of the desk the way you hope. But we're here now, and we're going to be here now for a little bit. So let's get back to the business of helping people write better, shall we? I've got 13 questions from all across all corners of social media, from all different kinds of people, plus the questions of anybody here in chat. Hi, chat, who has questions of their own they'd like answered. All questions are welcome. No questions are stupid. Feel free to ask a thing. Even if you think I've answered it like a billion times, I'd be happy to answer it 1,000,001. Really honest, I promise. Truly. That said, with no other ads or promos, although I do want to shout out several people who are, they just announced they're getting their books published, so congratulations to each and every single one of you. There's 3 of you. And I did not make a list of names, nor do I know how you'd like to be addressed. So I'm collectively saying, hey, congratulations to each and every single one of you. I always knew you were capable of doing this. Congratulations. Please enjoy it. Keep writing. And fuck yeah, let's keep making good art. Let's go start these questions, though, shall we? Question number 1. Is it a bad sign if I keep changing my outline to reflect what I'm writing? Okay, let's start with the theory behind this. Let's start with the ivory tower view, because the ivory tower view is going to tell you that, yeah, it's a big problem. That once you have that outline, you stick to that outline and you don't mess with it. You maybe make a little tweak here and there. You change a name, you change a word, this, that, or the other. But you don't like wholesale change the outline. The outline is practically carved in stone. That's the ivory tower view. That is impractical. That is a view that does not reflect or represent actual people actually writing with, life. It just doesn't work that way. It is not bad if you have to change the outline to reflect what you're writing, assuming you're writing. And I'm talking like actually putting together chapters and pages and stuff and scenes. You're not just rewriting and rewriting and rewriting the same page 55 times, hoping to get it perfect. I'm making air quotes. Hoping that it'll be okay. I mean, you're making progress writing. And it's okay if the outline has to change to reflect the writing, because at the end of the day, no one gives a shit about the outline. The outline is a tool to help you get the words on the page. Period. And when the words are on the page, the outline, whether it was followed or not, it's done its job. Yes, there are some corners and dimensions of traditional publishing that want to see your outline. Mainly that's so they can estimate how they think they could market the book or what they can expect when they read the rest of the manuscript. It's a partial preventative as well as sort of like an expectation setting device. Some places still get really critical about, oh my God, you didn't use Roman numerals. How dare you? Like, no one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. But all the same, people take the outline to be this sort of hard and fast academic level thing. And it's not. It's not. It doesn't even need to have Roman numerals and capital letters. It could be bullet points. It could be a numbered list. It just needs to be a procedure, a procession of 1 to however many walking through the events of the story. And if in the course of writing, you, in a surge of creativity with lots of enthusiasm and excitement, decide, oh, I'm doing great. I'm going to, I wrote this idea down, but I like the way it's going on the page. Go with what's on the page. Change the outline later. And I promise you, your secret is safe with me. No one's going to know that you kept changing the outline 1,000,000 times. The problem, the red flag, the issue is that you constantly change the outline and change the writing, and you never really make any forward progress. Where you have this idea, this sense of, well, I could go this way. No, maybe I should write it that way. Oh, I don't know. I could say this. I could do that. Nope, I could do it this way. And you're forever kind of crisscrossing over yourself, and you spend more time going laterally, side to side, rather than making forward progress. I'd make a football metaphor here if, that would help some of you, but some of my audience would not be helped by that. So suffice to say, rather than going forward and adding to your word count, you keep redoing the same things over and over. That's the problem. But no, it is not automatically a bad sign just because the outline has to be changed to reflect what goes on the page. Get the stuff on the page. It's totally fine. That's what matters. On we go. Question number 2. What can I do as a writer if I'm constantly getting distracted by the need to explain something? Oh boy. Okay, so I got to roll up my sleeves because this one's going to get a little complicated. Not so much in a very technical sense, but there's a lot going on in this question, and I want to make sure I address it from all the different dimensions and angles. If you are feeling that need to explain something because you keep bringing in new information. I want to talk about, the character drives to the grocery store, but then I got to stop and talk about how they bought the car and then where they get the gas and then the history of the person pumping the gas. And then I got to talk about the traffic light, which means I got to talk about the town. And then I got to talk about the city. And then I got to talk about the pioneer people who set up the city. And you keep, losing sight of I just want this character to drive to the grocery store. And you start pulling in all these things. What you're doing, possibly, because I can't say for certain, but possibly you're saying, hey, I have thought of a lot of stuff, and I want to make sure you know that I thought of all this stuff, which is kind of somewhat part of the job of a writer. Think of things, inform other people. But you can't possibly, or I should say you shouldn't, go out of your way to try and get all the stuff you're showing off onto the page ahead of and in place of the thing you wanted to talk about in the first place, which was, in our example, getting your guy to the grocery store. What that reveals, what that says to me in very large, blinking neon letters, is that it's a discipline problem. It is and I don't mean like fun discipline. I mean like an organizational discipline problem. Not everything you introduce in your story, especially the minor stuff like the car or getting gas or the traffic light at the corner, not every item you introduce needs to be developed. Sometimes a traffic light's just damn traffic light. Sometimes, Kevin who pumps the gas is just Kevin who pumps the gas, and it's not really going to be a thing because Kevin maybe shows up one more time to wipe the windows, and that's about the end of Kevin's existence in the story. The idea that you need to explain things, not because you want to throw your excessive imagination at the reader, but because you feel like without this explanation, the reader's not going to understand what you're talking about, assumes 2 things. 1, it assumes that you think the reader is stupid, and they're not going to understand the idea of getting gas, or stopping at a stoplight, or the history of a town in whatever country you've put it in. Readers are pretty smart. I don't know if you know this, readers read a lot and they gain a lot of information, and they're not as stupid as some writers like to think they are. So from that front, you don't need to over-explain everything. However, it also assumes a second thing, that they are the readers. They're going to run at the first sign of problem, the first issue, the first, oh my God, they didn't explain this thing. I'm out of here. This book sucks. Oh my God, there's a problem. Run. Like they're very skittish animals in the forest, and you've stumbled upon them, and then whoever blinks first is going to cause the other one to bolt away into the underbrush. Readers are not looking for a reason to run away. They're looking for reasons to stay. Now, that does not mean you need to give them 8 billion things to think about in order to get them to stay only because they have to parse 8 billion things. But they want a coherent story. They want to get the character to the grocery store. They want to see things play out. They could probably give a shit about the car, unless the car is very important to the story. But all these little details, all these little, oh, now I got to talk about this, and oh, now I got to talk about that, and oh, now I got to talk about this, screams a need for organization. It screams a need for generally just sorting out what you want to talk about from what's less important than that you ultimately don't need to talk about, because either you trust the reader to understand what getting gas or stopping at a stoplight is, versus it's not important right now to get into these dimensions, to get down these avenues, and I can just stay right here and follow the story going forward. This is why we outline. This is why we organize. This is why we have story development ideas, and we write notes and we plan things out, and we don't just sit and write and then hopefully one day it'll magic itself into a book. That's not how this happens. This isn't like, if I just point at 2 eggs on my counter and go omelet. Yes, in some kind of quantum reality, eventually an omelet will magic itself out of 2 raw eggs, but by and large, I have to do things in an order in order to turn those eggs into my omelet. Likewise, for my writing, I need to do things in a logical order to produce the manuscript the way I want. What you can do, slow down. I swear to you, slow down. I know that sounds weird because we just talked about adding information, but slow down with the information add. Don't dump more in. Work with what you have. Develop it slower. Make it more logical. Try not to answer things based on the assumption you're going to have that the reader's going to start asking spontaneous questions, because they're not. Just tell the story in order. This to this to this to this. A to B to C to D. And if you want to go over here with A sub 2 and B sub 3 and C sub 6, in a later draft, down the road, yes, find a way to weave some of those details in, but by and large, they don't always need to be there. Most of the things that you think are important because you're worried about how they're going to be received. Chances are they're going to be received just fine, because in a lot of cases, some of those details, fairly minor. Focus on getting the main stuff down, the big things, the critical things, the important things. And then from there, in a next draft, go start adding in that supportive detail. Focus, 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 slow down, organize your thoughts first, then get them on the page. That's what you can do. Great question. Oh, man. Question 3. Do I think that writers will ever unionize? First of all, we here at John Helps You Write Better, that is to say, I at John here, at John Helps You Write Better here, I will, of course, support the WGA strike. Absolutely. Let's do it. I mean, they're entitled to money for their labor. Everybody is. And it's good. Like, they're not asking for much. They're asking for, enough money, not so much to live glamorously, but, to be able to have a roof over their head and have a meal. That's a big deal. And the strike is not an unreasonable thing, because if, their shows are streaming, they deserve a part of that the same way they did if the shows were on regular television. And to hold them to unreasonable standards with mini rooms and odds and ends like that is unfair. And it really just screams the fact that the people in charge are trying to have a chokehold on staying in charge, and they're not really working collaboratively, collectively for the benefit of the audience whose, money they're trying to earn in the first place. So, of course, yes, support the strike. Do I think writers will ever unionize? I've danced around this question before. I was once asked in an early chat, I think it's still up on the YouTube channel, what I would do, like how would I build a better writing system? And functionally, I talked about unionizing according to genre. The problem with that is that it exists in pieces like SIFWA and stuff like that, and Romance Writers of America and Mystery Writers of America. But those organizations are so large, I think there are times where, due to their size, they're not as active or aggressive as they could be. And I think for a lot of people, membership in those organizations is more like ticking a box, like, oh yeah, I'm a union member, as opposed to I'm a union member. We're going to go, we're going to, petition for better rights. We're going to handle better money. We're going to do more things. And I think that kind of gets lost in the wash here. I do not think, to answer the question, I do not think writers will ever organize and put their bullshit aside long enough to totally unionize. I think there are too many disparate people, and too many people who are self-absorbed and interested in the competition elements of traditional publishing and capitalism, as opposed to like rising tide lifting all boats, because they don't think other people's boats are good enough. So no, I don't think writers will unionize, despite my want and effort to make sure that everybody knows that, hey, if you get a chance to unionize, you should unionize, because it is through unions that we have ever gotten anything that benefits us. So it's a good idea, and I think it should happen, but things suck, and there are rules that, keep all that shit from happening because there are rules. And this is not the time where I grab the black flag and wave it proudly over my head to tell you that all systems can become inherently corrupt when flexed with enough power. But it's a whole thing, and a lot of rules need to change first, and then a lot of people need to get their heads way out of their asses and realize that they are neither special nor unique, nor terribly, the top of the pyramid or the main character in everybody else's story. And then maybe somebody will come around and go like, hey, we should get together and like make sure we get paid fairly. But I think that's a down the road thing, as opposed to like, what are you doing Thursday kind of thing. I don't think writers will unionize. I wish they would. I really do. I really do. I remember being in publishing meetings, listening to the money people complain about small publishing being unable to afford agented submissions, where it was just, oh my God, if we have to deal with an agent, they're going to ask for more money than we have. We better insulate against that by asking the founders for more money. And something about that always felt very, very shitty to me. Something about that never felt right, because one, I didn't have that much money to throw in the pot in the first place. And two, the money was astronomically disproportionate. One person asking for this much, the other person asking for that much. Why couldn't we just standardize things? Why couldn't we organize better? Why couldn't it just be a certain way? And I was just basically told, oh, John, that's not how these things work. And then I just kind of nodded my head and rolled my eyes and tuned out of the rest of that meeting because I just felt pretty stupid about it. But no, to answer the question, I do not think that writers will ever unionize. There's a thing over in chat. I just learned under current legalities, writers are prohibited from unionizing under antitrust laws, as we are considered our own companies, and it would be price fixing. That has to change. It does have to change. Loads of things in terms of own companies and work to hire and all that shit. All that stuff needs to change because it's not wrong, but it's way outdated. Like, a lot of those rules do not account for the fact that cell phones are cell phones, and that, social media is a thing. Like, some of those rules are from way back in the day of like everybody wearing hats. It's grotesque. So, like some of those rules don't even account for women having the vote, which is boggling to me. But no, I do not think writers will ever unionize. Women should have had the vote ages prior than they did, but that's a different discussion for a different day. I'll probably put that in a newsletter at some point. All right. And now, are there any questions from anybody in chat? You want the cup date. Somebody's going to ask for the cup date. Here's the cup date. I am drinking this evening Mexican red tea. It's pretty good. It's not bad. Like, it's got some fruity taste. It's not as strong. I diluted it a little bit. I got too much ice in there, but it's pretty good. Like, I'm pretty happy with it. It's getting me through my evening. That's for sure. But I was told it was it's May, and I am plagued with allergies and like sinus pressure and all that stuff. And I was told this stuff was going to help. And it kind of has, I guess, a little bit, but, yeah, it's not bad. I think if I were less congested, like if I could breathe out of one half of my nose, I think it'd be better. But, for now, here we are. And I'll go have a hot cup of tea when I'm done anyway. See if I can be able to breathe. That'll be nice. Any questions from chat, though, before we get into like ear, nose, and throat talk with John? Chat, questions about anything? Else we will march on. I have taken to keeping straws on the desk so that when one of the cats comes in and decides they're going to try and like park themselves in the middle of a stream, I can throw a straw and all of a sudden they scamper off. So if you hear me like fiddling with shit, it's me chucking a straw so that the cat doesn't come in and like mash the keys and turn off the stream. Questions? Are we good? If I give you the impression that I haven't talked to a living soul today, it's because I really barely haven't. So thank you for letting me socialize. On we go. Question 4. What is beat occlusion? Beat occlusion is a developmental editing term that refers to the fact that one beat of whatever kind and whatever's happening in that beat is getting in front of and taking the emphasis away from the beat that is usually just before it. It is usually just if there's beat A and beat B, beat occlusion would be B taking, emphasis away from A, even though A is fairly important. Sometimes A, the smaller, the lesser of the two beats, the first of the beats, isn't necessarily occluded because it's naturally going to lead from one thing to the other, as in two people start talking in A, there's a dialogue beat, and then two people decide they're going to drive somewhere together, that's beat B. And because B isn't so much more important than A, it's just the natural consequence of one action to the next. It's not occlusion. Occlusion is when specifically the second beat of a pair of beats or a beat in a chain of beats blocks and obscures or de-emphasizes the previous beats. So for instance, if you have, if you have that, right, we have that dialogue scene to a driving scene, and we know that we're going to jump chapters in the next page, and we want to turn that driving scene into an action beat. The fact that we're driving suddenly becomes very occluded and obscured the minute we try to turn the action beat into a cliffhanger. Oh my God, all of a sudden, it's not so much that character 1 and character 2 are driving. It's, oh my God, look out, the rocks are falling and the mountain has exploded and there's a ninja. Beat occlusion happens when the beat that follows a thing is disproportionately large and given way more material, way more development, way more emphasis, way more attention, way more tempo, way more spotlight, way more anything. And usually this happens when that beat, that moment in that scene is something the writer has thought about before. Like it's what they picture in their head. I know I want this scene in my book. And so they wrote it, and they wrote the hell out of it because they felt really secure about it. They felt really stable with it. And then leading up to it, they were kind of like, well, yeah, I just kind of like, I just got to get him in the car. And then all of a sudden the mountain can explode. So that car beat gets lost in the shuffle. It gets occluded. It gets obscured. The fix for that, by the way, well, honestly, sometimes it doesn't need fixing. That's something that is worth pointing out. Sometimes beat occlusion is not automatically bad. Example, beat occlusion of a beat occlusion that's not automatically bad. In Return of the Jedi, when the Rebels and the Viet Cong Ewoks are taking it to the Stormtroopers while Luke and Vader are lightsaber fighting, there's a moment where Han Solo and everybody's like breaking into the little bunker, and Ben Burt does his own Wilhelm scream, and then it cuts away to the Ewoks like starting to fight back and stuff, and things get tense. The Ewok beat gets lost in the shuffle because the battle picks up in the next beat. And then we cut back to Vader and Luke, which then minimizes the ground fight. So there's a series of occlusions. This blocks this is bigger than this is bigger than this. And it scales upwards sort of in a way to suggest that, hey, this is the climax of the movie. It happens. Sometimes there's nothing we can really do about it. It just has to be this way. It's not the end of the world. However, sometimes randomly, like in a second act, like in Jaws. In Jaws, there's some beat occlusion when all of a sudden everybody is just on the boat at night and they're hunting the shark on is it the Orca? That's the boat. And then they sit down and they have that moment of like, they do the Scar speech. Like, I was on the Indianapolis and here's this, and she broke, like, here's my arm, and then she broke my heart. And they have that very famous dialogue beat. That dialogue beat, just prior to that, there's a moment where one of the barrels surfaces because the shark is, like, circling the boat. The dialogue for Quint and Hooper and everybody gets occludes or blocks that moment of the barrel coming up for the shark. You still get some tension. You don't get as much as if we had slowed it down. Beat occlusion is a semi-fixable and sometimes not entirely a problem thing that happens when one beat is more dynamic and more engaging than the other. Remember, and this is important, you can't have every beat be a big deal. When everything is a big deal, nothing's a big deal. You can't make everything huge and sensational because the reader will have no ability to catch their breath, no ability to contextualize what's going on. Some things are just going to have to be smaller. And that's okay. But from one point of view, from one frame of reference, when one beat becomes smaller because the one that follows it is bigger, you can argue that that's beat occlusion. And when it happens systemically over the course of your story, you get a very sort of jarring, uneven, irregular pacing, like little thing, little thing, little thing, big thing, little thing, little thing, little thing, big thing, over and over and over. And the reader can sort of detach from their engagement and slow down and kind of tune out because they know, like, okay, nothing, it's Dan Brown does this. Okay, it's 5 pages from now, there's going to be a new chapter and something active is going to happen. So I'll just skim. Or you see this in multiple point of view stories where people start picking and choosing the point of view they like the most, because generally the ones they like the most have some kind of action beat or have some kind of moment. So I can space out a little bit on the boring part and get to the part I like. That's the downside for beat occlusion. It's one of those things you just have to kind of live with. There's no universals, always fix it, always do something with it problem. It's just a thing. On we go. Question number 5. You've said before that romance and intimacy scenes, that's sex scenes, kids, romance and intimacy scenes can be earned. That is true. They can be earned. They can be the reward for characters progressing along their arcs. What other kinds of scenes can be earned? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Any kind of scene can be earned so long as that scene we're getting to, that end result reward scene, isn't so much like the two people finally meet up and they kiss. That's an earned romance scene. Or they finally have a conversation where they reveal, like, oh my God, no, you're my sister. That's an earned revelation scene. You can have anything be earned so long as you can establish a path to that point through elements in the story, whether it's a subplot, whether it's the main plot, whether it's just a character arc, whether it's just a set of events in a story. Anything can be earned. The benefit of having a scene or a beat type be earned is that it makes that earned reward substantial. The reader pays attention. It's a moment of, ooh, that's great. Good for them. Hooray. We get a little bit of reward going on. We get a little bit of satisfaction. Like, yeah, that's right. You know, ask her out to the prom. Good thing happening. Get some ice cream. Have some fries. Something like that. The function of a reward is to sort of contextualize and kind of seal everything prior to the reward away. It's like hitting a plateau. All of a sudden we're going and we're going and we're going, and we get to a little base camp, a little flat spot where we can reward ourselves, catch our breath, and then, okay, now it's time to keep moving. We've paused, we've caught our breath, now we're back to it. It creates a little set of steps, a little hierarchy, and a little pause that allows us to better understand the story, control its pacing, control its flow. But you can do this for any kind of scene. It doesn't have to be like scenes where the characters fundamentally gain something. You can have an earned investigation scene where all of a sudden they argue with, in the legal thriller, where everybody argues with the judge, and then finally the judge is like, fine, whatever, go look for the stuff. And they finally get into the case file and start digging things up. You can do it for a dialogue scene where you have two people who need to have a conversation and they finally, like have a fight or they have their conversation or whatever. You can have any kind of beat and any kind of scene be earned. The value in an earned scene comes from what the reward, what everybody gets out of it, what the characters are going to benefit from, what do they gain? Whether that's good knowledge or bad knowledge being the idea of like it costs them something or it's a burden to know a thing. Like a reward can be negative. This is usually what screws with people's heads. You can have a negative reward. A negative reward is finding out a thing that you really wanted to find out, but the thing you find out isn't good. like you really, really, really need to have a conversation with your mother-in-law, and then all of a sudden your mother-in-law reveals, I never really liked you at all. That is a negative reward for the character. They really wanted the conversation. We were working towards earning it. Whatever they were doing in the story doesn't matter. They earn that conversation, so we get to have that conversation. But the reward, the thing we get, the thing the character earns, I'm making air quotes, from the conversation is a negative impact. Oh, that sucks. She didn't ever like me. Okay. Then that allows that character to change in their arc, change their actions, be affected by what happened, and move on. A great example of this is in Better Call Saul, where for most of the first 3 seasons, you get this great combat between two brothers, Jimmy and Chuck. And then all of a sudden, Chuck, near the end of this whole thing, has this reward at the first season where he finally reveals the source of his animus, that he doesn't consider Jimmy to be a real lawyer. And then further down the road, as this relationship continues to spiral and worsen out, Chuck turns to Jimmy and says something to the effect of, well, I never really liked you much anyway. Those are negative rewards, but they are earned all the same, and it allows us to side with one character, Jimmy, and despise the other character, Chuck, for the purpose of gaining momentum in the story and continuing the story going forward. You can earn anything. It's just a matter of what you want to do with it. Great question. Great question. Question number 6. Does a second book need to tie back to the first? The word I'm stuck on here is does, because does suggests that it's supposed to, that it has to, that you have no choice but to do it this way. And that's not the case. It's super helpful for a second book in some way, shape, or form to kind of connect to its previous book, if those 2 books are in series. Like if they're 2 different books, 2 single standalones, they don't necessarily have to tie back next to each other, obviously. But if it's book 1 and book 2 in a series, let's say, it's super helpful that it does, because that way you get a sense of, a pre-existing relationship, or it allows you to shortcut and kind of end around needing to set things up because you just go back and read the first book. But it's not necessarily always true. If you look at mystery fiction, detective fiction in particular, most of the times each individual book is a separate case. And aside from the cases involving, the same characters over and over, the detective, the this, the that, whatever, the cases themselves do not always reference one another. You just have different cases. Nero Wolfe and in the corpus doesn't have every case is a case, and very rarely do we mention other cases by name until we get like deeper into the whole series, because there's like 30 something books. But early on, he doesn't, Rex Stout, the author, didn't stop and be like, okay, this is book 4, I better go talk about the snake in the box that was in book 1. No, every book stands on its own, because detective fiction is sort of it's voluminous that way. You can grab any book in the Rex Stout series and pretty much read it with minimal, up to a certain point, with minimal problem understanding or needing to read the other stuff for background. That's different than, say, something more fantasy or thriller infused, where it's a mystery, but it's a mystery with some other stuff. Like if you look at the Dresden Files, which has leaned far more fantasy than anything else, where after a long enough time, you have to know what the fuck is going on in those other books, because otherwise you end up lost. But to answer our question, a second book does not need to tie back to the first. It's very situation dependent, and it can be a good idea and a useful tool for a lot of cases. I can't say everything for certain, but in a lot of cases, a few references, a few explanations, a few repetitions from first book into second book, not a bad idea. But that's still a willful choice on the part of the author. You can still have multiple books that are in a series but do not directly connect to one another, other than by sharing common ground. Like all these stories are stories that take place with the same 5 characters, or they all take place in the same school or whatever, but they are themselves individual. So it doesn't have to, but it can super help. On we go. More questions from chat. Oh, man. Everybody good? It's been a day, right? Like it was one of those strange days where it seemed at one point like the morning was half over and then the rest of the afternoon just kind of crawled. Maybe that's just me. But everybody good? We're all right? Surviving whatever it is and wherever it is you are? Questions? Anything? Shall we move on? Yeah, let's move on. Question 7. How can you build a stream of consciousness manuscript into something publishable and marketable? Now, I'm assuming when you talk about publishable and marketable, you're talking about traditional publishing, because traditional publishing is the type of publishing that does not consider stream of consciousness all that marketable. That's usually because stream of consciousness manuscripts tend to run in extremes. They are either extremely good and well-structured and insightful with a strong, clear voice, so that even though it is stream of consciousness, the reader has a clear, handhold, they can follow the story and it makes sense and it's engaging because of its voice and structure. Or it's nightmare fuel editorially that doesn't make much sense at all, and it just sort of seems like it sort of seems like a stream of consciousness from the author more than stream of consciousness from a character, where the author is just writing to write and write and write. And you'll see the real bad cases of stream of consciousness writing are the ones where they decide, and in order for you to understand that it's stream of consciousness, they forget to do things like paragraphs and indentations and periods and ellipses and commas, and everything's just giant walls of text, like we're back in the old days of the internet on LiveJournal or Tumblr or something. And it's just one impossible manifesto that you're not quite sure where it begins or ends, but you've spent time reading it. That's the kind of stuff that traditional publishing holds as sort of the exemplar for the entire stream of consciousness genre or subgenre, depending on how you want to talk about it. When it's like that, when it's impossible to parse, when it's difficult to read, when it's very hard, if not impossible to follow, that's when it's unpublishable and unmarketable. And the fix for that, especially when it's something so poorly formatted and hard to structure, is to enforce structure on it. Make them put in page breaks, hit enter a few times, press period. It's okay. It can be a stream of consciousness, but still follow just enough rules of grammar as to be readable. You might also want to consider, in the course of crafting that stream of consciousness, find something that at least ties things together so that it's not the assorted, highly caffeinated ramblings of a small child on a weekend where they're just kind of turning in a circle because they had an extra sugar donut and they're just babbling away and you're not quite sure where things start or finish or pick up again. And it's just a lot and it's exhausting. Structure is going to help a great deal of stream of consciousness, and structure is not the polar opposite of stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness just means that the story flows without natural and specific breaks. It picks up and comes and goes and breezes in and breezes out without the hard and dedicated structure of the clear passage of time or the clear enforcement of chapters. Now, by putting chapters in, or at least by putting some kind of break in, you are making the stream less of a stream, but it's negligible. Because we can still have long, lengthy rambles and essays and digressions and all these little bits and bobs, and it can still be stream of consciousness. However, you can give it all the structure in the world, but it's not going to be an easy thing to sell, whether we're selling for query or we're selling for publication, if there isn't a strong voice guiding it. Stream of consciousness lives and dies by its voice, how it sounds. Who's communicating to the reader? What are they saying? How are they saying it? That's different than a traditional, third-person limited, follow this character as they go on the story, or third-person omniscient, follow all these people, or even first-person. It's more fluid than that. It's more intimate than that. And because intimacy increases, strength of voice has to increase along with it. Because it's the strength of that voice, the clarity, the precision and skill with which that voice comes across and connects with the reader that allows the story to be more intimate and be more vulnerable. This is part of the greater concept called creative dishonesty or creative lying, but that's a topic for a different day. That's a topic for next week's Substack. If you want to get in on that, by the way, it's free. It's johnhelpsyouwritebetter.substack.com. The Writer's Secret Weapon Volume 8 covers this exact topic. But it's the idea that vulnerability increase, voice has to rise up to match it or exceed it in order to give that sense of permission and framework. Otherwise, it's just going to seem like a very volatile character having like a strange breakdown on the page, which you want to try and avoid. Strength of voice is what's going to help it be marketable, and strength of voice and your ability to talk about that voice as though it's a product rather than, oh my God, look at chapter 8 where the character completely melts down over drumsticks. Rather than talk about it as a story, to talk about it as a product, that's what's going to help it be publishable. And the strength of the voice and your ability to recognize that is what's going to make it marketable. But that's still dependent on you giving it some kind of structure, some kind of line or idea or concept or notion that weaves all the way through. There has to be something. I understand that there is an entire school of thought that says stream of consciousness writing is on purpose random as hell. Just whatever you want to do, man. Just put it all on the page, man. It's totally whatever, man. I get it. I know. I took those classes too. I hung out and smoked weed next to that dumpster. I get it. But if we are going for an uptight stuffed shirt traditional publishing experience where a bunch of dick fucks who don't know anything inside their ivory tower are going to pass judgment and have an expectation that they're going to sell your thing, which might be pretty far out, to an audience of very down the middle of the road people who are not looking to clutch pearls, you need to give them some kind of material that they can hold on to and understand. Because if you just hand them your wild, reckless, abandoned story, they're going to freak the fuck out, which we do not want. It looks bad for you. It looks bad for everybody else doing it. We have a responsibility here and an opportunity here to not be the shitty people that traditional publishing says we are. Do better. Give it some structure, organize your thoughts, and then once you have those boundaries defined, run wild and free. Just stay within the field, right? Stay within the box. Great question. On we go. Question 8. Why are monologues called manuscript killers? Well, they're not called manuscript killers by everybody, but there are some writers out there who do love a good monologue. And the problem with a monologue, especially when it runs long, not so much its content, but this is primarily an issue of its size, each individual monologue size, as well as the frequency of monologues. When those things happen frequently and at length, you are basically sucking all the oxygen out of the room, drawing all the focus and every bit of attention to the monologue. Hang on, everyone. Steve is going to say something now. And then everything locks in on Steve. And Steve delivers the 3, 5, 10, 15, 45 paragraph soliloquy or whatever. And everything else seems to just kind of fade into the background so that Steve can have his moment. When that happens and Steve does his thing, and then all of a sudden, we're 3, 5, 10 pages later, everybody, wait. Deborah has something to say. Then Deborah does exactly the same thing, maybe on a different topic, but she gets to have her moment in the sun. And then now there's one for Bob, and now there's one for Tanya, and now there's one for that person and this person. And it just seems like everybody's speaking in monologues, and the rest of the story is just a reason to facilitate the next monologue in the row. It makes the manuscript feel less like a manuscript and more like a transcript of monologues. And that's why a monologue is a manuscript killer, because it'll suck the focus away from everything else. Because the story collectively, the manuscript, is more and should be more than just the monologue some characters give. Yep, we all remember the monologue. It's fantastic when done well, or when done so poorly it stands out. But there has to be more to the whole story than just the monologue. There is more to Hamlet than To Be or Not to Be. There is more to The Room than You're Tearing Me Apart, Lisa. There's plenty more. There's plenty more to Steve Jobs than I'm the guy who directs the orchestra. Like, there's loads more stuff in those stories. But the monologues so often grab our focus and hold our attention and become the only thing we really talk about. That's why it becomes a manuscript killer. Everything else is just sort of there, but it's all monologue all day, right on Front Street. That's what we want to avoid. You can have a monologue. There's nothing wrong with a monologue. Monologue to your heart's content. Sure, go for it. Make yourself happy. But be careful. Too many monologues, or too many monologues that run long especially, you run the risk of sort of losing the rest of the story. That's why it's a killer. On we go. I'm going to get a mouthful of water. Question 9. What is pull marketing? All right, we have to talk marketing theory now. I'm going to do this by not talking about books. We are going to talk about toys. Specifically, children's toys, little children's toys. Because it's easier for me to explain this relative to toys. And then anytime I say toys, you think about books. It's the same process. Pull marketing is the idea that the thing in question, the little kid's toy, the Tickle Me Elmo, if you want to go way back in the day, has a certain level of attraction to a consumer based on how it's marketed, or based on what everybody hears or sees and what the zeitgeist and the buzz is of a thing. Oh my God, this toy, the Furby, Pogs. I'm old, so I'm making old references. The newest Apple Watch, a certain kind of Jordans, whatever it might be. These things have a certain level of attraction. Attraction, that's the word I'm trying to get across. These things have a certain level of, ooh, I want that. We'll just talk about it the way I normally talk about it. Let's kick the jargon to the curb. There is a natural pull to them. Pull marketing leverages that ooh factor by, rather than being direct and going out and saying, hey, do you like Jordans? Hey, do you like insert fancy product here? You know you're going to get this. Like, you come on. You know you're going to buy this book, see this movie, engage with this thing. Like, come on. You just know. And they're counting on that. They're counting on sort of the unspoken appeal driving the majority of consumers towards the purchase. Like, for a while there, Marvel didn't really have to do a lot in order to engage in some pull marketing, because, come on, it's a Marvel movie. You know, up to a point, we were all going to go see it. You know, come on. And then later, they relied on that too much. Star Wars, at times, does this a bit too much, because it's like a Star Wars thing. Of course you're going to see it, but then you see it and you're like, what the fuck happened to Star Wars? And same with Marvel. Pull marketing relies on the innate appeal of a thing to reduce the urgency in other marketing. It pulls you in just by the fact that it's a thing. Oh, it's the new iPhone. We don't have to see that many promos. Ooh, it's the new iPhone. And we are drawn to it, and then the marketing can support that once we're in. Once we decide, ooh, new iPhone? Then hit them with, here's what this other iPhone does. Here's another camera. It comes in these weird pastel colors. It has fucking, I don't know, knobs on it this time or whatever. Whatever it might be, the marketing is softer because we're already been pulled in. It's not like a hard sell where it's like, hey, you need a phone. You want a phone? Here's a phone. It's no one's throwing Furbies at your face or Tamagotchis or anything like that. They're saying that you know you're going to get this thing. Come on. And once you nod your head to some degree, be it a literal head nod or a figurative head nod, then the marketing starts engaging. That's pull marketing. When it comes to books, You don't really see this directly from publishers. You see this, though, on social media. So let's suppose you have a book series. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't give a shit what it is. Well, let's suppose you have a book series that's very, very popular with Book Talk. I don't know. Maybe it's got a title of The X of the Y or X the X Zeeth or something. You know, real popular shit. Whatever that might be. You never have to have them really come out and go, hey, do you like this book? You want to buy this book? Because you just see them rave about this book, gush about this book, do weird TikTok miming bullshit to this book. And they never actually come out and make a sales pitch for the book. They don't hold the book up and like Vanna White it and then like run some graphics. They just, you know, haha, I'm lip syncing a song. And then I turn and I hand, like, they're bullshit with the book. That's pull marketing. When you can get social media to do that pull marketing for you, you don't have to market so hard because they're doing the hard work for you. It's not great. Pull marketing is generally considered, at least in terms of marketing trends, one of the weaker kinds of marketing that is inherently lazy because you're letting other people do the lifting for you. You're letting other people draw in your potential audience. Pull marketing, the direct opposite of push marketing, where you actually go out and you're like, hey, do you want a thing? Do you like X? Here's X. And you actually have to make a fucking effort. I don't like pull marketing. It's awful. That's pull marketing. Do I have it in a cup date? Yes, I'm drinking Mexican red tea. It's okay. It's probably honestly better warm. It would certainly do wonders for my stuffed sinuses, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's fruity. I got it at, where did I get this? I got this at Trader Joe's. Yes, I've been to Trader Joe's 2 times now in my life. I got tea. I also got like snack food. It was pretty rad. On we go. Questions? Anybody? We're flying tonight, man. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's the caffeine. Maybe I'm just nervous. Questions? Anybody? I'm skimming social media to make sure I didn't get anything. Thank you so much, Troy, for subscribing 6 months in a row. That's fantastic. Here, have some air horns. Thank you so much. It really does mean the world to me. I should point out that if you do subscribe, that money feeds those cats, and any leftover feeds me. It's a pretty sweet deal because they do like to eat. Although I have to tell you, I did use last month's Twitch money to buy some pillows. Excellent choice, John. Other questions, issues, etc. Else we will march on to our final set of questions for the evening. It was not my intention to move so quickly, but hey, here we are all the same. Anybody? Shall we? Let's go. Question 10. My blog is not getting traffic at all. That's a bummer. Despite me writing something every day. Hey, good for you for writing every day. That's awesome. What are 3 things I can do to fix this? All right, here's a disclaimer. I am not a blogologist. I am not an SEO master. My greatest experience with SEO is very, very dated. But I can give you a couple ideas. Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the super world to me. I get to eat now. Hooray! 3 things you can do to give your blog some traffic. 1, are you telling people that you're blogging? Because just blogging by itself is sort of like waiting on people to notice you're blogging. It's kind of like that kind of over dramatized move that somebody makes, like, pay attention to me, pay attention. I'll just keep tossing my hair and until you turn your attention to me. You have to go out and inform people that, hey, here's my blog. Hey, come check this thing out. Likewise, in doing that, there are ways to do it that are more generative of traffic than others. You can't just say, well, blog today, because that doesn't do anything. Hey, had a glass of water today. It's about the same level of impart. What you want to do is pitch. Talk about what you wrote. Hey, today I wrote, 3,000 words on why it's important to hit the space bar or whatever it was. Or, I talked about it. I was wrong in my previous assumption that this brand of ink would never sell or whatever it is. Talk about what it is. Don't just drop a link somewhere and then run away. Say something. Talk about what it taught you. Talk about the work. Not like, I wrote 2,000 words and here is a whole thread about those 2,000 words. Talk about the act of writing. Make the bar for entry lower for a reader. Make it as easy as possible, and you'll get some traffic. Writing every day is great, but if nobody knows you're writing every day, it ultimately doesn't matter. So 1, pitch more evocatively. 2, chances are you got to pitch in some different places. There's a better, I think I know who asked me this question. So I'm going to tell you this. If you are only pitching to the same 10 people over and over, linking them every Tuesday or every Wednesday and Thursday, hey, I wrote a blog post, but you're only talking to a small group of 10 people and they've seen it all before and they know this already, you're not growing your audience. You're just repeating the same thing to the not growing audience. You have to go out and risk. It's vulnerable. Be brave. Risk getting attention from new people. How do I do that? Where do I go? Go to other groups. Go to other Facebook groups. Try other Discord communities. Jump on other websites. Go to other social media platforms. Make an effort somewhere. Even if you think you're shouting to the wall. Here's an example. I'm on Substack Notes. Substack Notes is a division of Substack. I feel like I am the dumbest person in every part of Substack because I'm just me. I'm wearing a Wu-Tang t-shirt. I'm talking about writing. Meanwhile, over there are a couple epidemiologists, 4 journalists, a war correspondent, and a lady who's like made more bread than I've been alive. They are erudite and academic. They've got elbow patches on. They really don't care that I can draw a line between sourdough bread and ODB's album. They don't care. It's a different world. I feel I'm completely lost. But if I want to put eyes on my stuff, if I want to draw people in, if I want to get somebody somewhere reading something, then in those vulnerable, scary spaces, I have to be brave. I have to stand up and go, hey, you guys, I wrote this thing. It talked about potato chips. You might like it. Here you go. And it's terrifying because I have no idea what's going to happen. But when I think about it, I can take that exact same feeling that I had ages ago when my now very comfortable audience was new to me. So, item 2, pitch evocatively. Item 1. Item 2, pitch in different places to not closed loops of people. Yes, it's great that you can always drop a link in a Discord, but if your Discord isn't regularly bringing in fresh people and engaging with fresh people, ultimately, after a while, you're going to get diminishing returns. No matter how brilliantly you write, no matter how amazing your shit is, if there aren't new eyes coming to it, you're not going to see an increase in traffic because it's just going to be the same people as before. Third thing. And this one's a bit far out. And if this question was asked by the person who I think asked the question, you're not going to like this one, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I need you to talk about your traffic, talk about your blog in a different medium entirely. So it's real easy to talk about your blog in text. Your blog is text, and it's easy to write text about your blog. Here's a tweet. Here's a link. Here's a post on Facebook. Here's a post on Discord. Text. Text leading to text, leading to text, and so on. Super simple. No sweat. I'm going to challenge you. What if you didn't do it in text? What if, I don't know, you tried TikTok. Now, I know you're on TikTok, person who I think asked me this question, because you've sent me TikToks that you've done TikTok. I think they're called duets. You've sent me TikToks of which you are engaged. You have sent me Instagram posts. You have sent me little clips of things. Talk about your blog there. I know. Scary, weird, fucked up. How dare I? I know. But if you're trying to get some traffic on there, you've got to do different things than what you're doing now. And the more different, not so much sensational, but the more different things you can do, the more traffic you'll get, because you'll get different new eyes on it. Now, that doesn't mean the traffic's going to be consistent just because one day you hop out there and you're like, hey, you, and you, come check out my blog, and they check it out once. There's no guarantee that they're coming back every day. I can't guarantee that. Nobody can guarantee that. I don't care who you are. Nobody can guarantee that. But what you can guarantee is that there are going to be times where if you stand up and you say something about your work in a way and in a place that you haven't normally said it, somebody somewhere is going to notice. I don't know who. I don't know when. That's why we have to try. And then you give it a shot. Those are 3 things. Beyond that, if you have money to burn, and I'm pretty sure I know who asked this question, so the answer is no, you don't have money to burn. But if you had money to burn, you can do things to polish the blog, get a better template, do some rearranging, do something cosmetic, make it easier to parse, get a link shortener, loads of different things like that. But a lot of that stuff's going to cost some cash. And not everybody's willing to put that cash down because sometimes that stuff gets expensive. So rather than try and navigate those waters and assume we have to fix the problem with money, let's fix the problem through effort and courage and come at this in a different way. That is how I would put traffic on the blog. I'll even throw a bonus one in there. It is possible, I should say, not definite, that the content you're writing, even though you're writing every day, is part of the reason why you're not getting a lot of traffic. You can repeat the same bad writing habits and you can repeat the same flat kind of writing. And after a while, because it's not challenging, provocative, engaging, making a bold statement, making any kind of statement, it's just sort of there, laying there, flaccid and tepid, then yeah, your traffic's going to slow to a crawl because you're not pushing yourself as a writer to write in a more dynamic way. This includes blog topics as much as it does blog text. I'm not saying you have to go out and chase the trends and write about, oh my God, I'm the 2 millionth person to talk about AI this week. I mean, whatever you do write about it in a way that's going to keep somebody paying attention, and not like in a shock jock, edgy kind of way. You don't have to do it that way, but write in a way that is both honest to yourself and honest to them, but also in a way that is relatable to them, relatable to the topic, so that they have a reason to come back and go, oh, here's somebody who's, saying something I agree with. Here's somebody who's saying something I can, disagree with respectfully, or I can learn something from, or I can engage with in some way other than going, yeah, and then move on. You can get that engagement. And then from there, traffic will grow, provided you keep the consistency going. What an awesome question. Thank you so much for it. On we go. Question 11, another marketing question. Are QR codes viable marketing tools? Ooh. Now, okay. QR codes, I didn't know this, but QR codes are apparently a divisive topic in some circles. And there are some non-book-based businesses that live and die by QR codes. Like, gotta have them. They're a bread and butter thing, a foundational element. Gotta use them. Holy shit. And then there are some other people in other fields who are like, QR codes, that's weird and not good. Nobody uses them, or nobody uses them unironically. And everybody else is sort of lost somewhere in the middle. I didn't know this going in. When I started reading about QR codes and popularity and stuff, I had no clue. But I'll tell you this. A QR code is a great tool for accessibility. A QR code that can link you from one source to another. For instance, here, let's just give you an example of a book. There's a book coming out later this year. It's an instructional manual for somebody, for a client. And they've got QR codes in their instructional so that you can, while reading their book, stop, check the QR code, have it load a website, and see the thing done in front of you so that you know what the hell they're talking about in the text. It's a massive asset. It's a brilliant move. I don't understand why more people aren't doing that. Hey, game people. Hi. Come here. It's me. Hi. Game people. Why are we not putting QR codes in PDFs? Why are we not putting QR codes that link to short promo videos to talk about, hey, here's how you'll play my game. Here are the mechanics. Why are we not doing that? Why are we not linking QR codes to segments of a podcast or an interview to help drive a Kickstarter? Why are we not doing this shit? Are QR codes viable marketing tools? Yes. Despite what everybody will say about them or mock them or talk about how they're almost the exclusive province of MLMs and other markety grifty kind of shit, they are a viable tool when used effectively. Why not use them? Canva can make them. Like, it's not hard. You don't have to draw the individual squares yourself. More people, I think, should use them. Avail yourself of all the tools possible to help you accomplish whatever goals you have. Why not? Just because other people are like, oh, QR codes are lame, whatever. Maybe they're lame for them. That's not for you to decide. Don't let them make your decisions for you. If you think a QR code's one way of doing something, go for it. Try it. Why not? What do you have to lose? The worst case scenario is you try this thing, no benefit happens, and you're in exactly the same spot you were as before you tried it. I mean, other than like you spent let's say the 10 minutes it took on Canva to make the thing. Why not? Why not? Give it a shot. Who knows? I can tell you this. If I saw more authors embrace them, even if I saw them show up in more spaces and places, yeah, I would definitely say they're not a gimmick. But I think some people are so locked into like, well, this is how everybody else is doing it, so I'm just going to do this and not rock the boat. I think that's really a problem. I think that's really the thing here. That's not how we publish books. We do it this way. There's this and this and this and this, and that's it. And then somehow we expect that by everybody doing the same thing, somebody somehow is still going to stand out. I don't think anything works that way. If we're all doing the same 25 things, how is anybody supposed to be doing anything different? Absolutely, I think QR codes are worth it. I think they're worth pursuing. I wish somebody would give them more of a fair shake. I think they're an underutilized tool. Give it a try. Let me know. I'd love to hear about it. On we go to the next question. Question 12. Is epic romance just a drawn-out romance plot? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that epic refers to the length of the manuscript, the size of the story. It does not necessarily mean that the whole romance plot has to fill all the 100,000 plus words. It can be 60 or 70,000 with subplots around it, sure. But you don't have to draw it all the way out. But it can be, but just by the fact that the manuscript is so big, it can be drawn out more than in a non-epic romance. If you have just 110,000 words, it's going to take longer to get through those 110,000 words than it is the 80,000 words of a typical romance plot. That's just because there's more words. It does not mean, though, it's the same size plot. That's what I think drawn out refers to. The idea that it's the same amount of plot from the 80,000 unchanged. And we've just smooshed other stuff in. Yeah, you can do that. You can totally do that. You can have a 70,000 word romance main plot as long as it's parsed out evenly so that it's wrapping up and hitting the same beats and it concludes not so much the first 70,000 words, then the story pauses and picks something else up. But if you parcel it out correctly, yeah, you can draw out a romance plot. That's the yes. But the no is also a sense of it doesn't need to be. Just because you make something epic doesn't mean you stretch a thing thin. Epic just means you have more room for more stuff. And that includes adding more elements to your romance plot, adding an additional subplot, getting in another point of view, getting in more characters, having more backstory, having more fill in the blank, whatever it might be. That's what matters. You do not need to slow the plot down in anything. Epic fantasy, epic detective, epic this, epic that. Just because we say it's epic doesn't mean it's automatically slow. There are going to be some readers and, yes, some publishers out there who are going to look at that and go, well, epic means slow, because they're looking at submissions where epic means slow because it's a poorly written manuscript that probably needed some more editing, or it needed, some tightening or something. But epic does not automatically mean slow. So it's not just a drawn-out romance plot. It's just a bigger manuscript that contains a plot that may or may not be drawn out. There you go. On to our final question. Question 3. We gotta get a mouthful of water for this. Oh, good grief. Question 13. Why do writers count rejections? Because writers like to punish themselves. Because writers like to focus on their failings and shortcomings rather than their successes. Because writers are holding themselves to a standard enforced by a system that does not want them to succeed. They want to tell you how nice the prison is that they're stuck in rather than the fact that they're prisoners and they want out. Counting rejections means nothing. Counting rejections is not the sign of anything other than the fact that you sent more things out and have a greater chance of things to be rejected because you have more things out to possibly be rejected. It is not an indicator that, I've been rejected 35 times. My book is, let's do an even number. My book's been rejected 36 times. That does not mean my book is twice as bad as a book that's been rejected 18 times. It is not. It should not be. It cannot be. Yet some people still make it some great badge of honor that they've had some milestone number of rejections. Why would you do that to yourself? Why? What do you think that helps? What do you think that does except discourage you and mask your frustration or mask the sense of futility you feel about a system that does not actually want you to succeed under the guise of, I've been rejected so many times. Look at me do it with a smile on my face. Why are you counting that? I'm not saying it's ignorable. I'm not saying like, hey, maybe we should talk about your query letter. Maybe we should, take a look at what you're putting out there to see if it's a problem. Maybe this isn't the right brand of publishing for you if you're getting rejected like this. Maybe it's time to think about a thing in a different way. But at the same time, to throw yourself, to the mercy of the pit. Oh my God, I'm going to try again. 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 Even if you write different query letters every time. People count rejections like they're badges of honor. Like, I've survived this war. Look at all the bruises. Look at all the injuries I've sustained, but I'm still here, motherfuckers. Like, okay. Like, if that's how you're going to, pad your ego, cool. I really wish you wouldn't beat yourself up and then be proud you took a punch. But okay. All right. People count rejections because it's easier to count failings than it is to count successes, because we are not taught as creatives to prize our successes to the same degree as lament our failings. When we fail, it's huge. It's a big deal and it sucks and it derails us. It might not derail us very long, depending on who we are or what's going on, but we are taught to, oh my God, I put my hand to my forehead and faint upon the fainting couch. The vapors have overtaken me. I have been rejected again. It's this big drama swell because rejection is bad and rejection is a problem and rejection is this obstacle you have to overcome. Because the system is built on rejection, because rejection is how the gatekeepers stay in power, because rejection is how they make you feel weak and pointless and futile when you're not. And rejection is how they keep money from you. But that is a different story for a different day. The point is, counting these rejections is like counting the number of times you got your ass beat. Good for you. That's nice. But maybe we could instead talk about all the punches you threw. Maybe we could talk about how hard you're working. Maybe we could talk about how hard it is to try again. How much frustration you felt after rejection 16 that now after rejection 45, you're still trying. I don't know whether it's stubbornness. I don't know whether it's blind optimism. I don't know if it's futility. I don't know if you are suddenly hoping that miracle upon miracle happens and something radically changes. But if you keep doing the same thing and you keep getting the same result, but yet you're wanting a different result, but nothing's changing, I don't know how that thing's supposed to happen. I want it to happen for you. I want you to have the success that you deserve. I want you to get the thing you want. I want you to have the end goal you want. I want you to get there. I want your book on my shelf. I want you to feel good about having done this thing. But counting the rejections is like counting boos. BOOS, not BOOZE. Counting the commentary and the negative statements, rather than isolating the fact that somebody somewhere in the audience cheered. Why not celebrate your successes? And the reason fundamentally is because the only success people start counting is the acceptance, because that's the one that leads to the money. That's the one that leads to the reward. So there's only one of those, and it's way up here on a shelf. One of those. But there's like a billion rejections. So just in a semi-quantitative state, a million rejections has to outweigh the one success. 1,000,000 to 1. It doesn't matter that there are all these other successes that you have conveniently forgotten. Like, I don't know, you started writing, you sat down, you wrote a whole thing, you wrote a first draft, you wrote a second draft, you wrote a third draft, you got it edited, you maybe paid an editor, you maybe finished the book, you polished it, you made all the revisions, you started querying, you did all these things. Why don't they count? Why do we get to stop pretending like they're important just because the rejection process happens? It's irritating to me. Like deeply irritating to me. Because the system is built on rejection. There are always going to be more books rejected than accepted. Why is that? Because there are, according to the people doing the accepting and rejecting, a finite number of contracts and a finite amount of money that they can distribute, and effort and energy they can put behind a certain book. Is it really finite? No, they're cheap as fuck. They could do more. They could absolutely do more. They could spend more time, slow down the process, work with more writers, really, help people write better, rather than just prioritize and fast track specific things. But they don't want to. They don't want to because there's a lack of education. They don't want to because it's expensive. They don't want to because it's a pain in the ass. They don't want to because it's their job. They're not in the business of helping writers get better and write better. They're in the business of selling product. So the faster they can get a product, the faster they can turn around and get money and then give you very little of it. Rejections are how this thing keeps going. The more people get rejected, the more they keep trying, the harder it seems, the more precious the acceptance becomes, even though it's not precious, and therefore how exclusive it is, and therefore it's a bigger deal. So the people in charge maintain their status quo. And they tell you, just keep trying, just keep trying, just keep trying. And if I stand outside right now and I flap my arms and you just tell me to keep trying, eventually I guess I'm going to learn to fly. That's the same sort of situation we're talking about. I'm not asking you to flap your arms and fly. I'm not asking you to clap really loud so that Tinkerbell doesn't die. I'm telling you that counting your rejections is, in a very long and roundabout way, making it harder on yourself to succeed. I'm not saying ignore your rejections. I'm not saying that, hey, go in this with toxic, blind optimism. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, hey, it doesn't matter how many times you get rejected. What matters is, how are you going to reach your goal? And at what point do we reconsider not so much the goal of being published, but the avenue we take to get there? Does it really and truly matter? Your goal is to have a published book. Your goal is to have a book that someone can give you money for, that they can hold in their hands, right? That's what you want. Nobody and their mother sits down and goes, you know what? I really want to be published by Simon & Schuster. Like, that's my lifelong dream. Nobody fucking says that. Everybody says something to the effect of, I want to be a published author. I want to hold my book. I want to get a box of them and give them to my friends. I want to show this to my mom. I want to have a physical copy of my book. There are so many different ways to make that happen. So many different companies, so many different avenues, so many different routes. Why are we prioritizing one? The route wasn't our big goal. The end result, the published book's our big goal. So why not just do that? The old model is for dinosaurs. They're slow. They're a number of things. They're fascist, they're sexist, they're capitalist, they're corporatist, they're elitist, they're a number of ists, they're phobic. They try really hard. They do token diversity efforts. They barely have their heads partially out of their asses. And these are the hoops and the gatekeepers. Everybody's like, oh my God, that's so legit. Remember your end goal. Remember your end goal. What is it that you want? How can you get there? Why would you limit yourself to just one avenue if it'll get you where you want to go? I'm in my house right now. If I want to go to a particular store because they sell Twizzlers, there are a number of different ways I can leave my house to get there. I can go out the window. I can go outside. I can go through the front door. I can go through the garage. I can get in the car. I can turn left. I can turn right. I can go this way and that way. I can stop at the stoplight. I can stop at the stop sign. I can go all the way around. I can go out of my way and come back. There are tons of ways, some more circuitous than others, but some without stop signs, some without stoplights, some without traffic, some with traffic. Loads of different ways I can get those damn Twizzlers. I didn't sit down and tell myself, gosh, I really need to be on that one road to get Twizzlers. My goal was, I need some Twizzlers. So I'm asking you right there, what do you want? And is counting rejections helping you get there? Really? Really? Is it helping? Then why are you doing it? Just think about that. Just think about that. And remember that there's your goal, and there's loads of different ways to it. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to think about taking a different avenue to get to your goal. There you go. That's it. That's the wrong screen. There we go. Are there any other questions from anybody out there? Shall we get out of here? Are we done? Yeah, looks like. To the outro. Thank you, each and every single one of you. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for following. Thank you for liking. Thanks for hanging out. If this was your first time, I hope you come back. If you're a regular, it's nice to see you again. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for letting me talk about rejections and marketing and tea and Twizzlers and mentioning Pogs a few times. Thank you for every single second of this. It was so nice to be back and so great to do this. If you want more like this, and if you want to see more things like this, jump over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Adamus, as well as twitch.tv/John Helps You Write Better. And if you want to support this and anything else I'm doing, the best thing you can do is go over to patreon.com/John Helps You Write Better for all different kinds of stuff for as little as $2 a month. You not only help keep the lights on, but you literally help more things happen so more people can write better. Thanks so much for being here. All power to all people. I stand in solidarity with the WGA. We are always stronger together. Keep writing. I love you. I'll talk to you very, very soon. See ya.